So I invite Byron and Greg to step up to the mic.
Oh, I'll keep it fast and simple. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody for being here and allowing me to speak. I don't want this to sound too pitchy, but unfortunately it is kind of going to be like that. I apologize for that. But I just want to explain to everybody what we do. So we are pooling insurance in Washington State. We insure a very diverse group of nonprofits. We're NPIP, as you can see here from my shirt, which stands for Nonprofit Insurance Program. With the insurance that we have available to all of our members, we also have a ton of services that come inclusive to their premium. This is educational services, risk management. We have a PLP department, which is legal counsel that helps you with your HR issues, as well as a litany of other legal issues you may run into. We do claims and our educational services. The educational services are workshops designed to help you focus on your mission, so that and let us handle that piece of it for you. With our services and our insurance, we can only bring members in through agency representation. So you have to be represented by an agent or a broker. And NPIP services only in Washington State. I know I said that we were in Washington, but we only service Washington. Unfortunately, we're not a national program. We'd love to be. I'd love to be able to insure, outside of just Washington, but unfortunately, that's where our focus is currently. We imagine at some point in time we'll be able to leave Washington, but we're stuck here for now. If you guys or anybody on this call wants to discuss this further in detail, I will leave my contact information in the chat. That's pretty much all I have, unless anybody has some quick questions for me.
I think we'll hold questions for the end, and we also have an extended session for people to talk about. I know there are tons of questions about liability that we could talk about for hours, so we'll probably hold that to the end and switch over to Greg for now.
Perfect.
Thank you, Brian. Well, I'm Greg Scully with 501 Commons. Let me get started. And we are a nonprofit that serves other nonprofits. We started in Washington State, and we actually have expanded beyond the borders of the state. And I just wanted to thank you all for inviting me, first of all, Cammie and others at the organization there on your planning team and everything. I participated in part of yesterday, but I was just terribly impressed by what you're all doing, and I appreciate very much the opportunity to come to speak with you. Brian is with an organization that's one of our partners, and they are a trusted resource on what's called our resource directory, and I'll get to that in just a little bit if I can get my darn thing to get to the right screen here for a second. I apologize for this. I'm gonna I think that's just going to show. So do you see my PowerPoint yet? There, no.
Yes, it's loading. Yeah, now we can see it.
Okay, thank you. I apologize for that. I thought I'd picked the right one. Okay. So thank you so much for having me today. I'm going to give you an overview of 501 Commons and what we do and how we can possibly help you. So I'm just going to jump right into this. Feel free to put stuff in the chat, and if I can get through this part of it quickly, then we can have time to dialogue with some of the things. But I wanted to give folks an overview of what we do, our mission and focus, who we serve, what sort of services we have, and how can we help you. So our mission is that we really believe that we all rise when all nonprofits thrive, and we serve often, as you can read this, it's just really we serve people to amplify their strengths of their nonprofits. What I say is that we provide all these services so you can focus on your mission and what you're doing best, and not on the things that may not be your primary mission, such as IT, finance, HR, and so forth. So the values that guide our work are those right below. Our clients are throughout, and I'm going to kind of focus on Washington, Oregon here, because that's really where we started. But again, we've recently, in the last few years, have started to expand out. So if you're somebody in New York right now listening to this or watching it later, feel free to reach out to us. I'll give you contact information a little bit later. In their 53,000 nonprofit organizations in Washington, Oregon, and the similar number in Oregon. Of those, there are 23,000 are IRS approved. And I don't know if some people that may not be clear about that. You can be a nonprofit and not have IRS designation as a 501c3 tax deductible type of charity. There are two different things there. So first you apply with your Secretary of State, and then you get the 501c3 tax status through the IRS. So of those clients, of those numbers there, only about 5,000 of them have staff. So there's a lot of small nonprofits with volunteers. I think some of you are here today who are only volunteer driven, and that's great because you're serving a great thing for the community. We serve them as well. In fact, I talk to people who are starting up nonprofits or have zero staff and are board driven all the time. In 2021, we had 650 organizations used our services, and I'm going to pause for a moment, give a quick pitch for Give Big. We had a lot of organizations that participated in that. And I'm going to drill into Washington State only for a second. We run the Give Big program, which started about 11 years ago, and we just took it over 4 years ago from the Seattle Foundation. They did not intend to run it forever, and we have that now. It's May 2nd and 3rd next year. If you are a nonprofit and are licensed in Washington, in Washington State, then you can participate and Give Big. So that is coming up again, as I said, next year in early May, 2nd and 3rd. And for those, I think I saw somebody, the last presenter, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name, in Clark County or Southwest Washington. They were working with the Community Foundation of Southwest Washington, and they had a program called Give More 24, and they are going to be, we're merging the two into Give Big this coming next year. So we are statewide with this. It does raise a lot of money and visibility for nonprofits. So we are one of the biggest ones that does that sort of a program in the United States. So we are touching all aspects of the community. I don't know, that may be too tiny for all of you to read there, but it's really saying the first line is the sum of all of our accounts that we have in the arts and humanities, human services, and so forth, going all the way through a wide variety of different organizations. And again, I apologize if this is too small for you to read. Most clients that we serve have budgets below 1.5 million. And in fact, a lot of them, you can see right there, 23% are under 100,000. And so small is good, and we do serve them just as well. Don't think that the services that we offer are all just for the big, large nonprofits. They're for nonprofits all over the place in terms of their size. Here is a slide. Can somebody comment? Can you see that? Is it too tiny to read?
It's legible.
Okay, good. It's not the best focused, I'm sorry, but this is our core services. It's sometimes I find it hard to talk about 501 Commons because we have so much that we are doing, but I bucket it into those things that are focused around those rings. So governance and boards, we do board training and development, which is needed quite a bit, quite frankly, because a lot of boards are kind of learning as they go. And we have best practices, training, development, and services for boards. Fundraising and financial management for those who are raising money, as most of us are. We have all sorts of different tools that we offer there. Communications, relationships with marketing communications consulting, volunteer management, advocacy, and all sorts of other training resources. I oversee the training development for 501 Commons. So anytime that we offer a training online, or partner with another organization, that comes through me. Planning, technology, and administration is going to be the IT that we provide. So that we do data planning, we have Salesforce implementation, and a wide variety of other things. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. And then management and culture is also the organizational development, human resources. Some of you, again, I'm going to drill into Seattle, King County area. We ran the finance, or excuse me, the salary survey for King County nonprofits, and that's available on our website. It's a ongoing study that we're doing on tracking salary for in the nonprofit sector, because we all know, for those who are being paid in the sector, it is a challenge right now for them to keep and retain people, because let's just all pick on 501 Commons here, and that IT and planning. You can come to work for us and be a Salesforce administrator and leave tomorrow and go work for a for-profit organization and make a significant amount more money in that. So it's very challenging for nonprofits and all those things. So we provide tools and services to help those organizations grow and thrive. Anybody wants to do that. So here, just how can we help you? And I've just touched on real high level, real quickly, and I apologize for going so quickly, but resource directory. We have over 200 trusted providers in the resource directory. I manage the resource directory as well. And so those are people like Clear Risk who are in the directory. And so when people call me and they said, I need some insurance advice and we're looking for this and that, I will turn them over to Brian's organization. Or somebody's looking for a good attorney or finance or on and on. There's a web design. There's a ton of stuff in our service providers. They have to be providers who serve nonprofits. It can't be somebody else who says, oh, I just want to start my business and start selling to services to nonprofits. They have to be nonprofit focused, been in business for at least 3 years, and come with excellent references. So that's why I say trusted providers, not just anybody there in there. The nonprofit advisory service, I run that, and that is free information and referrals. People write into us and have really challenging situations and questions and so forth. I help them out in a wide variety of ways, from offering advice, but also referrals to other organizations, to our trusted providers, and to other resources that will help them to move forwards with whatever challenge or situation that they have. For instance, yesterday, last Friday, I got a call from a gentleman in Sitka, Alaska, and helped him out and got him the information he needed. So I do again say that these services, the advisory service is free. Okay, and it's something you can find on our website. Sign up for something if you have a question now or in the future. You can get a call with me or somebody else in our organization who has the expertise to help you out. Additionally, 501 Commons offers webinars, training, opportunities for networking. Although we haven't been doing that recently, we will be considering restarting that fairly soon. We have training on fundraising, as I said, board development. We provide facilitation for your retreats or other convenings or what have you. We have a ton of online tools on our website. I mentioned the salary survey, and also a lot of best practices of what sort of things are the best practices for you as a small, medium, large, whatever size nonprofit. So the vast majority of the information that I'm sharing with you here today is free. There are some charge services. You say, okay, great. Greg, how do you do all this? Well, we have the finance, the HR, the tech support, and some of the management consulting services. We charge nonprofits a fair rate to offer those services. That's how it's called earned income. We earn that income. We also do get some grants and so forth, but that's how we make our money. So all the other stuff on our website, there's no joining 501 Commons. You don't have to pay for it. You can take anything you want off of our website. It's all there for you at any time. So that is my high level overview. I apologize for the challenge at the beginning, getting my my PowerPoint going there, but I'd be happy to entertain questions with you along with Brian.
Great. And Byron, where are you? Come on back.
Still here.
I just got to find your window so I can spotlight you. Why is it? Keep talking.
Hi there.
There you are. Okay, great.
Okay.
Yes. I guess it. So thank you both. And we can open up some questions that have come in here. First that I noticed, it was for Greg. Does 501 Commons itself offer fiscal sponsorship, or what can you say to the fiscal sponsors?
No, we don't. I sometimes wish we did. What you could do there, we do have some information, good information on our website about fiscal sponsorship and how to start that. Let me back up for 1 second for those who are unfamiliar with what that is that you apply to, as I said earlier, is you apply to be a nonprofit with the state, Secretary of State in your state. While you're waiting for your 501c3's tax status from the IRS, it's 27 months, I believe, you get what's called a fiscal sponsor, and that organization becomes your funding. They literally, you attach your organization to their 501c3, so you can get tax, you can offer tax deductible contributions and start fundraising from government and other foundation sources. In fact, a lot of foundations and government sources of money won't give you anything, will not give you anything until you have the tax status. So it's a way to do that as you're waiting for that approval from the IRS. So fiscal sponsors are an excellent way to get started in terms of once you've launched the nonprofit. And we don't do it ourselves, but so for the arts, there's Shunpike. You need to have an organization somewhat similar to, or it has to be similar in you. So if you're an educational organization offering, something to primarily to the community for children or something like that, you don't go to a music school and say, will you be our fiscal sponsor? It has to be sort of like similar in nature. There are, I guess I'll just say in summary, no, we don't do it, but there are a lot of tools on our website for fiscal sponsorship. And if you want to discuss it more, I'd be happy to do that with you offline, or just set up an appointment with me.
So I think that that may answer Amanda's question, that you can provide a little bit of advising on.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Oh, actually, no, excuse me. Her question was if somebody wanted to become a fiscal sponsor.
Oh, to be one.
Other stage.
Yeah, I've had that question a couple of times. It's great. Again, it's I've got some tools. Actually, I don't want to go into it too deep here, but I've got some tools I could point you to. So shoot me an email or set up an appointment with me. And by the way, I didn't put all of our website stuff on there. I just put the 501commons.org link. You can find me on there. It's greg@501commons.org. Or you can schedule an appointment. So it'll say, it'll offer, you just type in your information into it, what it is you want, and that you want to talk with me, and it'll get to me and we'll set up an appointment. So yes, we do offer that. I can give you some information on it, because that's a great, if you're doing that, bless you, because it's a great thing for other nonprofits to have that. And it's a big deal for them to be able to start to advance their mission.
Yes. And a second question that came in, does 501 Commons offer DEI training of any sort?
Yes, we have in the past. We don't do it on an ongoing basis, I would say. It's more like I did it this year twice, I believe. So that, and one more thing about training and on our website, we have events, featured events in there. You go into that featured events. Our events are on there, but as are other organizations that we work with and collaborate with, such as the Nonprofit Association of Washington. They have a training on DEI, now very specifically. Go onto our website and find, or just go directly to theirs, and you'll find it there. But you can always see ours that will also host and post other nonprofits who are offering, or excuse me, other organizations who are offering trainings to nonprofits. So yeah, DEI, I would check with the the Nonprofit Association of Washington or our website and find them. But yeah, I only do it like a couple of times a year, not on an ongoing basis.
Great. So this is a question a bit to both of you, because I know, well, this is sort of Byron's area of expertise, but also Greg, I know we've chatted a little bit, and you have some history with this as well. Liability, especially in the context of our kinds of groups. So we're dealing with volunteers, we're dealing with people handling tools, people coming into event spaces that we don't own. What kind of guidance are your and support systems are your entities able to help with? We like liability waivers. Who do we turn to for these kinds of issues?
Well, I can tell you, if you're in our membership, if you're with NPIP, we do have tons of model forms and policies that are available to all of our membership that you can use. Waivers are your first best defense against claims, lawsuits, what have you. And then risk management. The services that we offer through NPIP, we have designated risk managers for our nonprofit insurance program. So you would be able to contact them and say, hey, we've got an event coming up, or can you come to our location and maybe give us some recommendations that might help us keep from having an incident or possibly getting yourself into a claim situation. Again, our services are designed to take some stuff off of your plate and be a partner to you so that you can keep focused on your mission.
Great. And Greg, did you have anything to add?
No, he did just perfect. That was excellent.
I think that's, I do not have a legal background, so I know something that has plagued me, woken me up at night, coming from an operations background, and thankfully our wonderful note taker also has an operations background. So these are near and dear to our hearts. The liability waiver itself, how strong a protective measure is a liability waiver?
For me to give you any type of, I can't give you any legal, advice on that level. I can just tell you that I've run into situations. I was a claims adjuster for 6 years, where inevitably I ended up in small claims court with a liability waiver, and through that was able to show an attorney and a judge, hey, we've got this waiver. They signed it. They submitted a claim anyway, and now they're suing us. And they just read through the whole liability waiver with the person that signed it, asking them if they understood, and eventually dismissed the case. So I would say whatever waivers that you're handing out, you should have an attorney review it and give you their blessing, essentially their legal blessing or their best legal review, and then move forward with whatever they advise you.
Being in operations and working for multiple small nonprofits at this point, I'll tell on myself a little bit. I confessed to Greg the other day while we were talking that when I first moved to Washington State, I was like, look at this amazing nonprofit 501 Commons that does what? That's so great. They do all these things that I've been struggling with in my previous role, where I was the HR person, the IT person, the accounting support person, the office manager, the everything. And we understand as small constrained nonprofits that we feel we have to do that. But I just want to underscore to everybody that there are other models to consider, ways to creatively outsource some of those responsibilities that actually support your mission in the long run, so that your organization gets to focus on what it is good at and can maybe lean on someone else to do some of the other items, especially as far as like turnover within the organization, trying to get a new person up to speed. It's just, it can really set you back a lot. So I encourage folks to consider working with organizations like 501 Commons. And Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, 501 Commons now works nationwide effectively?
Yep. We do, yeah. I talk to people all over the nation all the time. So I had a call from, what was it, Saudi Arabia once. It was about the furthest out I went, but it turned out the guy was on a board in Port Angeles. But no, we are nationwide. I mean, quite frankly, the vast majority are going to be on the West Coast, Pacific Northwest. But I'm happy to serve. And if it's something I can't answer because or we can't answer as an organization, I know where to send you to another organization that's closer to your jurisdiction, wherever you are. So
let's see.
Oh yeah, I see.
I'm trying to distinguish between what is a question for here and what is just other comments. Hold on. Byron.
Yes.
Yes. Any suggestions on selecting a broker or key signs to identify key qualities needed?
Sure. I would always suggest that you get somebody local, somebody in your backyard, essentially. You don't want to connect with somebody that's so far away that you're never going to see them. The agent or broker, when they work with us, they get paid through us, but you get to choose your representation. We don't pick that for you. I can obviously give you tons of recommendations of agents and brokers that might be local to where you're at if you just tell me where you're at. But as far as the latter half of that question, it's a key signs to identify key qualities needed in the broker, or what are we talking about?
I'm sorry, this is Alex, and that was actually my question, Byron. We've just gone through an exercise, and I think the part, and I noticed that you referenced you need to work through the broker.
Yeah.
We kept hearing that over and over. And some of the responses that we received back from the broker are very vague in terms of coverage and liability and what if type scenarios. And I'm questioning whether we chose the right broker. Maybe that's where the root of the issue is at.
Sure, and that could be. I mean, you might be asking some questions that the broker might not be familiar with. I think depending on what coverage, who carries your coverage, you might want to just tell your broker or ask your broker to connect you with the insurance directly. Most of the brokers and agents I work with, because we offer such robust services and we have so many people on staff to help. I mean, that's all we do is risk management. We're basically a big risk management company. The broker or agent typically just hands it off to us. They say, hey, here's what's going on. We get CC'd in the email, so on and so forth. And then we, attack the question or see what they need and what services they're looking for and try to get them connected with that. So my recommendation to you would be go back to your agent and find out if he can connect you with your carrier, the insurance carrier, for those specific questions. That's
a great suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I see a question from Megan in Austin. I'm going to read it because it's kind of long. So they have a small tool library there, and they've considered setting up a fixer space. And actually, I think this question may be worth anybody else who wants to weigh in on if you have experience in this. In the central library location, so I'm understanding that as their public library, so standard book library. They want to set up a fixer space, and they're nervous about liability risk in that context. what kind of simple waiver might work to mitigate that risk, and has anyone else dealt with a similar issue? And I think if either Greg or Byron doesn't have a specific response to that, I think we might have some other tool libraries, et cetera, that would possibly be able to weigh in on it.
I don't have any specific responses other than just to say, and I'll just weigh in on this one piece, is that you should never move forward without having something there to protect you. So anything that you're doing, as long as you're using a waiver, is better than nothing.
Good point. Alex, what kind of response would you have with, because
it's a really good question, especially since you're dealing with a city government, and they're probably looking at it from how can we protect ourselves beyond this token of a space that we're giving this nonprofit. I would suggest there's probably other organizations within your city that likely have done this before, whether it be books or whether it be somebody else that likely has already waivers that are set up. But I mean, as far as the tools, I think there's a bunch of resources sitting around the table here, sitting around the screen. They can probably provide Megan some samples of what those waivers look like that have been vetted by retired attorneys and attorneys that are sitting within these boards. I think Joel Epstein had on the chat, he had somebody that he offered that could possibly help as well, that's part of their legal team. And I can't imagine that it's going to vary from state to state unless Texas has a unique type of liability versus Washington. But again, it's worth investigating.
That might actually be a valid concern.
Yeah.
I see that Mark from Tacoma Tool Library is here, and they actually just recently co-located with the public library. So Mark, do you feel like you?
That's a good point. Yes.
So I'm actually trying to find the liability waiver that we're currently using, just to like post it. I can throw it in the chat. I'm not specifically the person that deals with the relationship between the library itself and the actual main branch public library, but from the way that I do understand it, I believe that we're covered under like a basic contractual agreement between the main branch library and what we're actually liable for, and whatever we're exposed to within that contract, that's what our liability waiver covers. As far as if you're doing fix-it space and you're just having kind of like random people come in, we typically have people sign waivers before they come in, just to kind of cover the basis. Yeah, for general members, we just have them all sign essentially a generic one with their lending, when we're lending from the library, excuse me.
And Megan, this might. So I think I recall that Tacoma Tool Library was with partnering through Zero Waste Washington. We were previously doing events in the library before you all moved into the library. So what we did before that, I wasn't around at that point, but I think we had to get an insurance certificate just for the event to host it in a space that was not ours, and that continues to this day. If we don't have a space of our own, so we won't be hosting any events in our own space. But we just get a location based or event day specific insurance certificate. So that may be more relevant to your situation, depending on how often you're planning to have the fixing going on. You may, if you want to unmute yourself, please tell us more about your planned planned fixing event, or if maybe it's
Sure.
not.
Yeah, so we actually, our tool library is housed within the city, the public library right now, and that's been a bit of a challenge just because the library is limited on what resources they have and can contribute towards it. And one thing we thought about was, instead of having it be a library that you could rent out, actually having the space in the library so people could just come to the tools instead of the tools having to go to them. But what the library has told us, because I'm in a different department, I'm in Austin Resource Recovery, they've said that they're concerned about the liability of specifically people, like someone said earlier, kind of random people coming in and using tools with no background knowledge necessarily of how the tools work and the safety precautions and all that.
That is the same advice that we've been given, Megan. And so that's kind of a unique situation that you're describing. You're having a member walking into your facility and operating a tool that they may or may not be qualified to operate.
Right.
It's kind of a completely different topic here. It's almost like you're having them work in a workshop rather than even a fix-it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure out if that is just like, okay, that's a deal breaker, or if there's a way that we can work around this and still make some sort of fix or
yeah, there's a lot more to that. At least that's what we found. I mean, we have a bit of working space that we've actually created a classroom off of, and we've stayed away from that topic because of the liability associated with somebody coming in that may or may not be qualified to, let's just say, handle a router or a saw, and potentially hurting themselves in the premises.
Right.
So yeah, this is less of a fix it and more of a workshop, really, is what you're describing.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So, Alex, do you all require orientation to specific tools? I believe Northeast Seattle Tool Library does. I'm assuming some of the others do.
Well, there's certain tools that we just don't lend out unless we're able to see some proper use or some prior use that we can kind of challenge. But we really tend to stay away from the real dangerous tools. But the reality is, Cami, and like everybody else, is that you can hurt yourself with a pencil. You can hurt yourself with almost anything inside the library. And some people, unfortunately, will hurt themselves because they either don't take instruction very well or are just not inept at handling tools. And some people will never hurt themselves. But the one thing that we're real clear about is that they're not going to do it under our roof. And I hate to say that, but if you borrow the tool from us, you're going to have to operate the tool outside of our premises, because otherwise it puts us at risk. And so that's how we differentiate, I guess, with that topic. As far as the instruction topic and qualification, that really gets into a whole host of different issues as to who is certified to certify who, and and how many hours or how many minutes or what videos qualify you to actually handle that chainsaw. So it's a whole can of worms on that one.
It's true. And I will echo what Alex mentioned. Northeast Seattle Tool Library has a board member, and I believe several of the tool libraries have board members that are lawyers, understandably, who can speak to these topics. I think this board member is kind of new, but he's offered to at least field questions, so I can get that email and chat. He wasn't able to join us tonight, unfortunately, but is more than happy to help with some of these ongoing widespread concerns. Mark, I was wondering, does Tacoma Tool Library, are you all doing on-site tool use outside of the fixing events, or do people just mostly take and go home with them? You don't have a workshop that I remember seeing.
Currently, there's no workshop. There's been kind of like a little bit of talk of possibly doing that in the future, but it very well might, liability is probably going to be an issue that has not been addressed specifically for tool use inside of the library. But yeah, so mainly, yeah, it is, they take stuff off site and use it.
And I want to qualify, we actually do hold classes in our makerspace library, but they're under a specific tool with instructors, a set number of students receiving safety precaution instruction and so on. It's not just random, here's a tool, go ahead and use it. So we are doing that now, and we've started doing that in 2022.
And Megan, I can send you copies of the liability waivers that we use for our library, just as like a point of reference. I'll send you the tool use liability waiver as well as like the borrowing policy.
Okay, great, thank you.
Other questions that have come up for folks? I'm trying to find that email. I'm about to get it for you all. There we go. This is, oh, Jenny, you got something?
Yeah, I have a question for Byron. We have a liability waiver that's printed that people sign, but we've been letting, especially during COVID, we were letting people start their membership online where there is a liability waiver, the same liability waiver, but all they do is initial it. And some of our tool librarians don't always notice that they haven't signed a physical one. I'm wondering how much, if that protection from that would be equivalent to the printed one, or if we should make an effort to try and get everyone to have signed a printed waiver.
Yeah, I would just say you got to be able to show that there's a connection between the waiver and the person. So if you can do that via online, that's great. If there's no possible way to connect that person with that, I mean, because you're saying they could start their membership online, the waiver's there, they initial it.
Yeah.
When they go in to borrow the tool, you're talking about the same thing everybody else is, right? You guys have like a tool library, correct? So when they go in to actually physically grab the tool or take possession of the tool, how do you connect them with that waiver?
Well, when they register, they enter all of their information and then they sign the waiver in order to be in our system and be able to reserve. They can't reserve tools unless they've at least signed digital waiver.
So there's a
But
reservation.
their waiver is connected with their membership in the system.
Okay,
Jenny, I'm assuming that you're probably referring to my term, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I think there's a number of people here, Byron, that use the same exact system. My turn has literally a place that you could make sure that the members, it's mandatory, otherwise you can't go any further, that they sign X amount of documents, including liability, understanding that the use of the tools is their responsibility, you know, and then all the other things that go along with it, such as your own membership type rules.
Oh yeah, okay, great, that's perfect. Yeah, I would say
but that's password protected. So so there's a name and a password associated with it. So this is the feedback that we've gotten, Jenny, on the same topic, because we asked the same thing during COVID. And it's as long as there's a password and a name associated with it, the member had to do that. They had to take that step to manage that.
Yeah, I guess I was concerned because our waiver requires that we check their license, their driver's license, to confirm that they're over 18. I think in my turn, they just have to agree that they're over 15 or 18, but I was just curious about the initials, because if they sign a paper waiver, then whoever took the paper waiver is the one who initials that waiver.
Yeah, I suppose my point would be you just got to be able to connect the people that are checking the tools out with the waiver. If you can do that and that system works on that level, then I think you're fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Well, we gotten all of our questions answered. Amazing.
As soon as we get our insurance bill is usually when we get the questions for Byron.
Yes. Byron, I think you mentioned that for anybody who is outside, although wait, I'm trying to check. There are obviously Megan's outside of Washington, and I see at least one Canadian here. But are you able to make recommendations for organizations outside of Washington, or who would support?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would try to connect them with something that would be local to them as far as insurance product goes. But unfortunately, I'm kind of, in a silo and focused in on what's happening in Washington, which there's a ton happening here. So unfortunately, I would not be able to give them any recommendations in regard to insurance services or product in their area. So unfortunately.